afternoon to all the good folks out here. I'm sure with the perspective that Anshu has just given us, I mean, I got goosebumps, to be honest, right? It's just such plain speak and such heartwarming, connects that one gets from the work that is being done on the ground is just like a breath of fresh air. So thank you again for that, Anshu. Really felt good and to hear about your amazing work. We've just very quickly about myself. My name is Pranav Khanna. I am Director of Strategic Initiatives at Lower Labs. I have a background in sustainability, in circular fashion, plastic waste, crypto, as well as climate action. Currently, I'm focused on the intersection between climate and blockchain. And I'm also been a key contributor in the Web3 space at ReFi DAO, which is Regenerative Finance DAO, and also been working with the grants program called Gitcoin, where we are funding small projects essentially to scale up climate action and action in the Web3 space. But I just want to bring focus back to this journey that we've had today. We've started off with development agencies. We've had inputs from academics. We've heard, funding institutions, and we've also had Anshu taking up the lead for the entrepreneurial, community. But let's be honest, one of the biggest challenges in this space, and I think one of the biggest levers in this space, in fact, what would really help us, what would really provide tailwinds is policy. And hence, for this part of the session, we have perspectives from policymakers, from the UN, as well as from creative industry leaders. Because, people who have been in the space for the longest time, they have a wealth of knowledge to provide to all of us entering the space. And it's always better to stand on the shoulders of others and look further, right? Build and scale on work that has already been done. So I invite you to join me on this small panel where we share these perspectives and add value to this amazing session. First up, we have with us Bruna Elias from Global Compact. Bruna actively engages in lobbying, advocacy, and policy dialogues to consolidate efforts and promote SDGs. As a young activist, she's particularly passionate about issues related to inequalities, youth, and innovation. Her work was featured in Amika George's book, Make It Happen, How to Be an Activist. In 2019, she was selected as one of the 11 global activists to join the Youth Power Panel, a platform led by Restless Development, Project Everyone, and Action for Sustainable Development, advocating for youth representation and meaningful engagement. Bruna, welcome to the space. I would love to have your thoughts on these couple of questions. And feel free to please share your journey and your perspective with us on this. This is essentially about how does the UN Global Compact support the circular creative economy, particularly in the context of the SDGs? What are the key challenges in promoting digital transformation in the creative economy at the global level? And the flip side of that, all of these challenges, how do we see them as opportunities? What are the opportunities for SMEs? Bruna, welcome to the space.
Thank you so much, Pranav, for this introduction, and thank you for the invite to be here. The discussions have been extremely insightful. So I'm here wearing my other hat, which is with the UN Global Compact. So I'm currently the SDG Innovation Lead at the Global Compact. I've been working for 7 years now within the UN ecosystem, particularly with the Global Compact, leading on various initiatives. And I'm very happy to be talking about our work today when it comes to circular economy and sustainability. So for those of you who are not familiar with the Global Compact, it's a special initiative of the United Nations Secretary General with a call to companies worldwide to align their practices and their strategies with the 10 principles in the areas of human rights, environment, labor, and anti-corruption. It's the world's largest corporate sustainability initiative with more than 18,000 companies and close to 4,000 non-business signatories based in over 160 countries and 62 local networks worldwide. So the conversations this week for the HLPF, particularly yesterday at the SCG Business Forum, were extremely insightful too, where we talked about what they called the rescue plan leading up to the SCG summit. And two words were notable: transformation and transition. And to answer your question, to support the circular economy, this first of all requires efforts and a collective effort from various stakeholders, including governments, which you mentioned are responsible for policy, also businesses, consumers, and civil society. But maybe before I dig deeper into what the Global Compact is doing, we could talk about the key strategies to really foster the transition towards the circular economy. And first and foremost, we talk about the circular business models. And this is part of the work that we do as well, encouraging businesses to really adopt those circular business models, such as product as a service, sharing economy platforms, and various other closed loop business models to really promote the optimal use of resources that we have and foster a more sustainable consumption pattern. Something else that would be a key strategy is obviously innovation and rethinking product design, as we've heard before. So how we could really create low impact materials within the production phase. Something else that we often maybe overlook is collaboration and partnerships. So how we are fostering collaboration between businesses, between governments, NGOs, people here in this room, research institutions, to really exchange knowledge, exchange best practices, and work together on those circular economy initiatives. Something else would be the investment and research on innovations, everything related to the circular supply chains when it comes to education and training. And most importantly, as you mentioned, policy and regulation. So we know that governments, they play a critical role in promoting the circular economy through supportive policies and regulations. We know that some governments already have incentives, sometimes tax breaks, funding mechanisms that really encourage sustainable practices and discourage waste generation. So governments really have the power to introduce those policies and to have the companies, the businesses, particularly the big businesses, accountable for the life cycle of their product and really making them think about the durability of what they are producing. This also is coupled with advocacy and policy influence. And this is one major thing that we do as the Global Compact, as global advocate for sustainability and circular economy. So we always raise awareness among businesses and governments about the importance of adopting those practices. And we also are in conversations to support regulations to really create this ecosystem for circular economy models. Something else I would say would be SCG integration. So we do promote the integration of those principles into the business strategies of the businesses, the 18,000 businesses part of the Global Compact. And we encourage those companies to really align the practices within the SCGs, particularly when it comes to responsible consumption and production, decent work, economic growth, and climate action. Of course, all the SDGs are targeted as well. And given the role and the platform that we have, I think what would be interesting is to talk about how we facilitate the collaboration between the businesses, but also the government, civil society, and multiple stakeholders to really foster innovative solutions that will address the sustainability challenges of our time, and how we share those resources, and we really emphasize on knowledge sharing. So we have a lot of resources, tools, guidance document for businesses to transition to circular business models. It is not just something that we ask businesses to do, but we really show them the way on how to do so. And last but not least, if I think Citibank, they are part of the they are part of the Global Compact, but if we have other businesses on board, they know that we have a robust reporting system, because we really ask that companies, as part of their commitment, to report on their progress in implementing those sustainable practices. And this could be done through our own reporting mechanism, but also through the sustainability and CSR reports of the companies. So if you want to move to your maybe second questions about the key challenges in promoting digital transformation, we know that this is on different levels. Of course, every time we talk about digital technology and the transition, we talk about the opportunities for growth and innovation, but it's very important to also address the key challenges, notably something that was mentioned earlier too, the digital divide. The access and connectivity that we have. So one major challenge is really how to ensure the widespread access to the digital infrastructure and connectivity, particularly when we're talking about developing countries and underserved regions. So we know that we have all those technologies in place, but sometimes access to those technology really hinders the participation of individuals and businesses in this digital economy. Something else worth mentioning is the privacy and data protection. Now that we have this creative economy that is increasingly digital, we know that companies are collecting data, they are processing large amounts of data, and everything about the consumer behavior, everything about the trends is being stored. So we really need to make sure that we don't have data breaches and misuse of data, but also because this data informs decisions and informs policies at a bigger scale. Something else to talk about would be the skills and the workforce adaptation. So yes, we have this digital transformation, but to be able to really harness it effectively, we need to encourage continuous learning. This is something that companies are doing. They're upskilling, sometimes reskilling their workforce with the digital skills that they need to really thrive in this evolving landscape that is evolving at a very, very fast pace. And sometimes it could create what we call the market fragmentation. So we know that each country, like, they have their own regulations, their own standards, their own business practices. And sometimes this circularity and those digital technologies are making it more challenging for creative businesses to navigate and operate on a global scale. And of course, we have a lot of disruptions. Something that we could note is the resistance and everything that comes with the uncertainty of things, because this is not something that we're used to be doing. We are not doing business as usual. We are disrupting traditional ways of doing business. And sometimes this could also come with the digital monopolies, where we know those giant tech companies and tech influencers can really influence this economy. So this could potentially stifle innovation and creativity, and this is something that we should be on the lookout for, to be able to really enable businesses to thrive in this new digital economy. And lastly, again, regulatory and policy challenges, because let's be honest, policymakers they often struggle to keep up with the rapid pace of digital transformation. And in most of the cases, we have outdated regulations and policies, and sometimes this hinders innovation and growth. And that's why it's very important for businesses and those tech giants that I mentioned earlier to be within the same room when those legislations are being placed, because they have the resources, they have the capability of keeping those things up to date. And last but not least, if I want to touch base on the opportunities for the SMEs, we know that the SMEs are the engine of private sector growth, both whether it's developing or developed economies. And we know also that the SMEs are really critical to fulfilling the global goals. So we know that maybe their capita is little smaller than larger companies, but the cumulative impact of SMEs is very, very big. And actually, globally, SMEs, they account for 90% of businesses and 50% of total employment. And we also know that 7 jobs out of 7 are provided by the SMEs. So at the Global Compact, we have done extensive work on SMEs. We also have an SME strategy that we launched earlier this year, and I invite you all to look it up on our website. And throughout the research, we really discovered that the SMEs are ready and willing to scale their engagement within the sustainability sphere in general. But they want to be provided with content, with initiatives that are targeted and that are meaningful. And in fact, 60% of our participants at the Global Compact are SMEs. So I'm not going to go into this strategy in detail. I will let you read it. But some of the opportunities that we see are definitely the digital transformation, how those SMEs are embracing digital technologies and platforms, just like Tamina just mentioned earlier, ChatGPT, artificial intelligence, and everything that comes with it, and how this can open up to new markets, how they can streamline their operations, how they can enhance customer engagement, tracking, monitoring, and evaluation, and etc. How this is giving them access to global markets that they never had access to before. So this digital transformation is really making it easier for SMEs to access those markets and to connect them with customers that they were never able to connect to before. And also, the digital transformation is creating more opportunities for collaboration and networking. So SMEs are the body that benefits the most from collaborating with other businesses, both if it's within their own industry or across sectors. So we often see them partnering with large companies, startups, academic institutions, and this knowledge sharing is also giving them more access to opportunities for them to really work on sustainable products, because they understand that consumer increasingly, they prefer products and services that are socially responsible and sustainable businesses, and they are capitalizing on this. They're capitalizing on innovation, on creativity, and they are fostering this within the development of all the products within the SMEs. And also, last but not least, the government support and incentives. So we already know that many governments, they are recognizing SMEs in driving economic growth and employment, and they are providing a lot of financial support, as I said earlier, on access to grants, access to loans, so they could overcome those financial challenges and invest in the growth of SMEs. So the strategy to really work with SMEs and to leverage those opportunities and to scale whatever we already have with SMEs is a big part of what we will be doing in this year and the upcoming years. But definitely, just to recap, we're really looking forward to capitalize on digitalization, leveraging new scaling ideas and leveraging new pilot projects within SMEs to see if it's going to be effective, tailoring everything that we have for businesses, for SMEs, to make it really relevant for them and provide them with lots of partnerships and capacity building, whether at a global scale or through all our local networks across the globe. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruna, for that detailed walkthrough. And I mean, to be honest, that's literally like a playbook out there, touching upon all of those points, literally just to put together a plan. So thank you so much for sharing all of that. I would invite you to share the link, Bruna, in the chat box, so that people who might want to go there, including me, frankly, I would love to take a look there, can go and check that resource out. Thank you so much again. I would now like to welcome back on stage Olivia Chasot, and forgive me if I'm not pronouncing that correctly. Apologies in advance. But we've already had a little introduction of Olivia, so I would just bring her to the questions. And this is again from her perspective at UNESE. How can local grassroots initiatives So here, you know, a lot of times we talk about the top-down approach where it's organizations who are just, you know, pushing information down or directives down or frameworks down. But there's also listening, you know, and frankly speaking, listening is even more important, particularly where it applies to SDGs, it applies to the human element. So how can local grassroots initiatives influence and shape international policy making to promote this creative circular economy? And what kind of change is necessary in our educational systems in order to integrate sustainability into curriculums and to provide educators with access to the relevant training to develop the creative economies, right? So what we would love to have your thoughts around that, Olivia, please.
Thank you. Many thanks, Pranav, for the introduction, and very pleased to join again on the third dialogue. It's been very inspiring to listen to all the speakers in such an open discussion. So to go back to your questions, it is critical to make sure that designers, fashion schools, SMEs, grassroots actors and initiatives have the right tools to make their contribution to the sustainable consumption and production priority agenda, connecting back to the SDG 12. And for that, capacity building, technical assistance are critical to ensure the upskilling of all of the actors that are involved in the green and the digital transition. And that includes sharing knowledge on the new regulatory requirements, which will be critical to ensure that small-scale actors are still integrated into global value chains. So for instance, at the EU level, there are now about 16 legislations on sustainability that are under development and which will impact textile and clothing companies regarding compliance with due diligence, sustainability corporate reporting, waste collection, green claims. So at the UNECE, to ensure that the tools that we developed meet the needs of the industry and to implement our toolbox in practice, we are doing pilot implementation. And pilot implementation, the power of pilot projects was mentioned already at several times during this discussion. So concretely, we developed a blockchain system for traceability already 2 years ago, supporting the companies involved all along the value chain to identify the key data entities to be collected and exchanged from the farmer, cooperative, the giner, the weaver, manufacturer, and brand and retailer, following an inclusive and collaborative approach. And the implementation of pilot projects to trace products from the field to the shop shelf in a blockchain environment provided companies with a robust methodology to formulate substantiated claims. So it has been instrumental to cover the upstream part of the value chain by involving small-scale actors, SMEs, MSMEs, because the hotspots and the risks, sustainability risks, are also highly concentrated in the upstream part of the value chain, which is less visible, which is more complex and more opaque. So as a concrete example, the pilot project we completed last year with the FAO regional office based in Santiago, with Costach Cooperative that represent about more than 5,000 farmers in Peru, and with Creditex, which is one of the largest yarn producers in the region in Peru. And the outcome of this pilot project is that we successfully traced in the UNECE blockchain platform a pyjama made of Pima cotton. I don't have the sample of the pyjama, otherwise I would have been happy to also show the pyjama. And so it was made of Pima cotton, so it was traced all along back to the origin. And we traced also the compliance with social standards, RAB certification in that case, and also certification on chemical use with Ecotech certification. So the right traceability and sustainability evidences were uploaded at critical points, in the blockchain. So UNECE provided coaching, training to build the capacity of the users, which were cooperatives, manufacturers, on the application of traceability methodology and on the use of the technology itself, the blockchain platform, which was a critical success factor for this pilot project. So to come back to the question, to us, there is a real opportunity to enhance market access, exports, investment, jobs creation through the compliance with sustainability requirements, environmental, social, governmental standards for MSMEs, SMEs, but it is important to acknowledge the power of collaborative business models, and those pilot projects that I just mentioned for us is an example pushing toward more collaboration along the value chain to alleviate the challenges linked to the circular and the sustainable transition. But there are some key challenges, some key lessons learned: the need to access finance, the lack of infrastructure, the need of technology, the lack of connectivity to keep up with the global sustainability trends, the new regulatory and legislative developments. So it would be critical to keep up with all those developments to successfully have these inclusive and innovative business models. So lastly, just many thanks to Hecho for Nosotros again for their support all along the way since 2019. They joined our call to action, and this is a valuable example of the collaboration we need within the UNEC Sustainability Pledge community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Olivia. And I love this framing of a POC as a listening methodology, wherein the POC literally just, takes all of that information and the insights that come out from the POC to actually shape and formulate the policy going forward. Thank you so much for sharing that. I now have the honor of introducing a dear friend and a powerhouse in this space, Adriana. Adriana, I'm going to run out of time just introducing you, so I'm going to keep it very short, right?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
It's not necessary at all.
Absolutely. So I would just love
to the point and to Trish, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But absolutely. But before we jump to Trish, Adriana, I would definitely, and I know you're very passionate about work, right? I've seen that, right? We are in a discussion around policy, and I have a separate set of questions for Trish, right? But for you, I do have a question, and that is, what would you ask policymakers to focus on?
Collaboration, co-creation, education.
Love that. And that, those three words actually cover a gamut, cover an entire, paradigm, if I can call it, right? Thank you so much for sharing that, Adriana.
One word that more is to have this systemic approach, no? Because we are in a world that this fragmentation as occurs inside of us, in our value chains, and also in the solutions. So this approach of co-creation and collaboration brings these tools of systemic point of view. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, Adriana. I now have the pleasure of introducing my colleague, Tricia Langman. She's HXN partner. She's a change maker and sustainability expert with extensive experience designing for renowned fashion brands globally. She's a managing partner at NGO at HXN, and she's collaborating with international brands to develop innovative, circular, and sustainable strategies. Trish guides brands on rapid transformation journeys to achieve sustainability goals. She also serves as an advisor to the board of Fashion Ghana and has showcased design projects at prestigious institutions like the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Currently, she serves as a consultant and curriculum leader at a BIPOC-focused circular fashion accelerator in Los Angeles. Alongside her work in sustainability, she teaches entrepreneurship and contributes to nonprofit organizations as a board member. Trish, it's always a pleasure to hear from you, and I'm going to take this opportunity for you to share with us your perspectives. As a leader in EdTech and innovation, how do you see technology enabling a circular creative economy? And also, how education as a means to bridge the gap between the small and medium businesses and the local and international markets? Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Pranav. Thanks everybody here for an incredible conversation. I'm going to not take up too much time. I'm glad we're here to shed light upon a topic that holds immense significance in our ever-evolving world: entrepreneurship in the creative economy and the transformative power of digital innovation. Here at Hecho for Nosotros, we want to emphasize the importance of educating entrepreneurs and the consumers about the potential for digital transformation in forging pathways towards nature-based and circular solutions in the industries. So in the global south, where resources are often scarce and environmental challenges persist, entrepreneurship becomes a vital tool for sustainable development. And it's through the entrepreneurship that individuals can innovate solutions that address pressing social economic issues. So in order to fully harness the potential of entrepreneurship, we must embrace the power of digital transformation, I think. Digital technologies have the ability to connect entrepreneurs, consumers on a global scale, breaking down barriers, creating new opportunities by leveraging digital platforms. Entrepreneurs can access markets, resources, and knowledge that was previously out of reach, as we've seen with COVID, just making that accessibility, and something some of the other guests highlighted. This sort of accessibility enables them to develop nature-based and circular solutions that promote environmental sustainability. However, the transformation takes place. I think that education is going to be the key. We must educate both the entrepreneurs and the consumers about the benefits and potentials of digital innovation in the creative industries. In this journey towards circularity and digital transformation, we have created a toolkit here at Hecho. We feel collaboration is crucial. Academics, industry professionals, and organizations such as Nosotros have come together to create this toolkit. It provides entrepreneurs in marginalized communities with the knowledge and resources they need to adopt circular business models. And by equipping them with the necessary tools, we empower these communities to build sustainable and resilient businesses. Moreover, the toolkit also emphasizes gender parity and inclusivity in the entrepreneurship space. It recognizes that empowering women and marginalized groups is essential for sustainable development. And by fostering inclusivity, we unlock the full potential of diverse talents and perspectives, driving innovation and creativity. So let us recognize the transformative power of entrepreneurship in the global south and beyond, and the role of digital transformation in forging a pathway towards nature-based and circular solutions. By educating entrepreneurs and consumers, and by providing them with tools such as the circular toolkit at Hecho Nosotros, we can empower communities to embrace sustainable practices. And together, let us foster gender parity, inclusivity, and environmental stewardship in the entrepreneurial space. Thank you.
Thank you, Trish. Thank you so much for sharing that. I now invite Ivan Petrella from the Bunge and Born Foundation. Ivan is the Director of Culture, Humanities, and Creative Industries at the Foundation. He holds a PhD in Religion and Law from Harvard University and is a researcher at the Berkman Klein Center for Internet and Society. He has previously served as the Director of Argentina 2030 at Casa Rosada and as the Secretary of Culture at the Ministry of Culture of the Nation. He's a columnist in Argentina's main media outlets and has authored books on philosophy, politics, and religion. Welcome to the space, Ivan. I invite you to share your perspective on the following questions. What is the role of foundations in promoting disruptive sustainable models? And how is local development integrated into the global conglomerates? What are some of the challenges that your organization and corporate foundations face in the integration and collaboration of NGOs, SMEs, grassroots, small and large businesses in order to advance circularity and sustainability? And what would infrastructure and digital tools, what tools would help companies like yourself to integrate and engage with the SMEs?
Hey, Pranav, thank you for that. Thank you for the intro, and thanks for the invitation to be able to speak at this. I learned a tremendous amount of stuff in these 2 hours. I think I'm the second to last speaker, I believe. So given that, I'd like to take some liberty and go back maybe to the why that we do this, or at least our why at Fundación Bungeborn, or Bungeborn, as you mentioned, the discussions we have internally here amongst ourselves. And a question we ask ourselves often is, what is the task of culture? After all, I'm the Director of Culture, Humanities, and Creative Industries. What is the task of culture? And the definition that we like was once stated by an American/English poet, W.H. Auden, who once said that the task of culture is to make self-deception more difficult. To make self-deception more difficult. And, we live in a time, and, different people gave different examples of this. We live in a time when self-deception is ever more dangerous, leading, if we look just merely at the effects of climate change, to perils that are just plain hard to imagine. And, we think, or we believe, or we argue that the modes of production and also the ideas, concepts, and descriptions that we inherit from the world of yesterday, more and more fail to describe and meet the challenges posed by the world of today. And, you can think not just of climate change, obviously, but also new technologies such as AI, genetic engineering, biotechnology, not even speaking about the world of tomorrow. Like, it's harder and harder to envision, what the world today will look like 10, 15 years from now. I have a 6-year-old son, and, and it's something I struggle with, what will the world be like when he's 30? I really don't have much of a sense of what the world will be like when he's 30 and what kind of questions he'll have to ask himself about his own humanity in relation to the technologies that we have today. So I start with this because, it's kind of, these ideas and this conviction that gave birth to separate programs this year in our foundation that go hand in hand. And even though we've always focused on science, technology, our foundation gives the most important science prize in Argentina, el Premio Ciencia Fundación Mujiborn, which was given this year for the 60th time. For the past 60 years, it's always been given. It's like the Nobel Prize for Science in Argentina. One of those projects is Diseño Argentino Exponencial, exponential Argentine design, which has a lot to do with a lot of the stuff that we've talked about, in past hours. We do this in alliance with the British Council. I won't get into much detail. I'm going to put my email up again in the chat again for people who want this info. But this is all about supporting small business and entrepreneurs in terms of the values that everybody's spoken about. If the modes of production, as Marx once thought, permeate us all the way down, make us who we are, then how we produce is central to the future of humanity. It's not just about what you make, it's about how you make it. So, that's one project. And the other project in Spanish is called Presente Continuo, which I guess would be kind of continuous present, where we focus less on the modes of production and more on the descriptions, concepts, and ideas which will help us, we think, or hope, imagine the world of tomorrow. And there what we do is bring together artists, scientists, philosophers, and social scientists to an interdisciplinary program where the idea is, okay, if the concepts that we've inherited from the past don't help us imagine the world of tomorrow, what concepts do we need now? How do we reimagine our descriptions? How do we rethink the ideas we have to be able to better envision the world of tomorrow? And we think, of course, there the mix of disciplines is central. We're way behind schedule, so I don't want to go any farther. I'm going to put my email once again in the chat, and I'm happy to send info and collaborate. We're always looking for collaborators. For exponential design, we're working with the British Council and with the Inter-American Development Bank. And for Presente Continuo, we're setting up alliances with different regional universities in Chile, in Colombia, and Brazil, which have programs that bring together technology and art to be able to start to generate a South American or regional network where we can think about these issues. So once again, thank you for your time. And, it's been a pleasure to be with all of you here today.
Thank you so much, Ivan. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. I will now like to invite Geronimo Frigerio to bring this part of the session to a close with his final remarks. Geronimo.
Thank you very much. I'm the final speaker, so I'll try to keep it short. I'll try to connect the dots about what you have all said and trigger some questions. These questions are my own, so that we can think about many of these things that we have discussed today. So Olivia brought the issue that we need new green regulation, and basically she built the case for that. The question I bring to the table is, can we bring new regulation without necessarily bringing new cost for the private sector? That is a challenge in itself that, I would say, shoulder to shoulder one with the other. Alejandra brought the issue of more policy dialogue, and she described the case of Mexico. Indeed, essential for all our countries. Question, can we make that public-private policy dialogues focus on reforms, since within this dialogue we have discussed a lot about the need to innovate? I hope we can. Jeff brought the issue of digital transformation and how we are all zooming. Yes, it's true. In many countries, we are visualizing the end of cash money. But in many others, we can only see that cash is king and remains king. So how are we going to live in the years to come with CBDCs, cash and the new, I would say, digital assets that are coming so much ahead from regulation? Hecho brought the story of the sewing machines and the need to integrate MSMEs. Indeed, that is, I would say, the key to exit poverty, doing business. And the World Bank had a publication which was Doing Business, where basically they very much focus on that. Then Radhika spoke about Gandhi and his legacy. And there might be one of the key questions: how to ignite, I would say, reforms at complex times as the ones that we are living. Then Krista brought the issue of scaling impact investments and the need to scale up capital, which is indeed a challenge. And if we take a look at the Sustainable Development Goals, well, 2030 seems to be right around the corner. And just for those who have been around for some time, we remember the Millennium Development Goals, where most failed in 2015, but even those who got it right, such as Nicaragua or Ecuador, even Cuba or Peru, are not doing very well today in many of those indicators. So I would say it's good that we share some Sustainable Development Goals, but we all know that they're very difficult to achieve. And I would say that a lot of the discussion today had plenty to do with that. How can we get it right? How can we learn from those, I would say, Millennium Development Goals where we fell short and where we can see that 2030 is just around the corner? Semina, I loved your presentation about graduation from poverty, because you focus on doing business and business regulation. And I agree, business regulation should be simple and digital. How to introduce reforms so that, especially for MSMEs, doing business can be simple, can be done through the piece of technology that we have, which are mobile phones. Anshu brought the issue of clothing as a basic need for the poor. Absolutely. And I would say that all across Anshu's remarks was the issue of informality. And to a certain extent, informality is telling to many of our countries lessons that we need to learn. We can't turn our backs to informality. Informality is somehow shedding light on the problems that we need to solve. We keep on speaking about regulation, policy making, and institutions. Well, informality is telling us what's going wrong. If we have rules that we can't fulfill, requirements that we can't pay for, informality is telling us our problem. And is, as in the introduction, informality was being described as our, I would say, partner in life, where 50% is basically growing in the informal sector. Well, I think that plenty of the discussions that we have shared during this session today have to do with facing informality more of as an asset rather than a liability, an asset that can tell us what we need to learn from it. Pranav spoke about blockchain, and I thought that plenty were going to speak about blockchain, but well, blockchain is already here, even if regulation has not arrived, and regulation is arriving late, but many in the private sector are already moving into blockchain. So blockchain is here, it will stay here, and even if regulators in the US and all around the world take their time, there is no way back to blockchain. And in poor countries, people are stepping very much into blockchain. So I think that Pranav remarks were very much on the spot. Bruna was inspiring about the global compact and how principles can somehow put together a vision to the private sector. Amazing. Transformation and transition, two key words that have been somehow endorsed already by the 1% of huge companies, of big companies. The challenge is how to expand it to MSMEs. And Olivia again was speaking about new regulation challenges, and she was speaking about small and medium enterprises. And in regions such as Latin America, the vast majority are micro enterprises. In the global South, micro enterprises remain, I would say, larger than SMEs in itself. Tricia brought the issue of education, indeed, arguably our toughest challenge. And Ivan, I would say, shed light on key questions about what we're facing next. And I have to somehow reflect on Ivan's question. I don't know how the world will look like when your son turns 30. But one thing I'm sure is that if we don't really reform, if we are not hungry for reform, well, one thing that's for sure is that there will be plenty of poor people. Because, I mean, that is what happened with the Millennium Development Goals, that these questions have been asked in the past. And we know, we have evidence in the past 50 years that, I mean, unemployment, poverty, and informality remain the rule where we get it wrong in terms of regulation and institutional arrangements. So I would say it is high time to reform. And I think that if we put together the dots, this whole session had plenty of things of shared views. And I think that putting together some sort of development vision or putting these topics on the agenda, it's quite a step forward if we are able to understand that it is not enough to share a vision, but we need to sort of innovate through policy, which means our rules, our institutions. Thank you very much, Adriana. I'll give it back to you.